We do have people that can call in and listen in, some of the commissioners may not. I was going to wait, just give us another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Camera on and on, but that's pretty much my technology I use. Let's turn it. Okay, well, good morning everybody, and welcome to our February 3rd, 2021. It is February, unbelievable. February 3rd, 2021 Governor and Executive Council meeting. And before we start, we certainly want to remind any of the commissioners or staff that the few that are joining us today, be sure to silence your cell phones if you don't mind, and any other electronic devices that you might have. All 5 councilors and myself as the governor are here today, so we won't have to do any of the votes on over the phone, but we are allowing folks obviously to call in and observe the meeting, and for some of the commissioners participate in the meeting telephonically. So there is still a telephonic aspect and a remote aspect to our meeting to make sure that we get as much participation as possible. To lead things up, Councilor Stevens, would you like to lead us off with a reading of that?
Certainly. Conference recording started.
Oh, there we go.
Pledge first?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Good morning. I recently finished On Desperate Ground, the story of the Chosin Reservoir battle during the Korean War. My father served in the Korean War. He seldom spoke of his service, yet when he did, he described the hostile environment and the fear of freezing to death. During the Korean War, 20,000 members of the 1st Marine Division were ambushed, surrounded at the Chosin Reservoir by 120,000 Chinese soldiers. The winter of 1951, what George Will described as 70 Thanksgivings ago. Over the span of 2 weeks, fighting in the sub-zero temperatures, which my father had described, against an indomitable foe, the 1st Division was able to break away. What followed was a 70-mile march to a protective seaport. The general responsible for leading the 1st Marines to safety, a cerebral military strategist, Oliver P. Smith. While the Marine 1st Division was acknowledged for this heroic feat, Smith's brilliant leadership was not well known outside of military circles. A private, modest person who, quote, took a dim view to those who brought an exaggerated sense of chivalry to war, he seldom made headlines. Without fanfare and with many sacrifices behind the scenes, Smith got the job done. Yesterday I received a phone call from a friend, a constituent who I met while campaigning. He needed my help with scheduling his vaccine, with 2 major comorbidity factors, and a major milestone of her birthday just days away. He stressed that he would not survive the virus. As with most of everyone I know, he seldom asked for support. This request was from the 1st Korean veteran I know. I asked him to send an email with his health history. After behind the scenes, much like General Oliver P. Smith, he was getting the job done for his New Hampshire residents. When he circled back at the end of the day yesterday with an update, he thanked me and stressed that he almost missed his critical follow-up call for his appointment. He stressed that he had been driving a visually impaired woman home from her job that night. I noticed a pattern here. Every day, I am in awe of the heroic leadership taken by Adjutant General Michaelides and the hundreds of National Guard with the confidence of Marines always have in the future. We have much to be thankful for. We have emerged from a supreme test with our spirit unbroken. Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. That was wonderful. So Kenny, we didn't get a chance. Did we formally introduce you?
We did.
You're amazing. You
She might be behind us.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you, Governor. I just wanted to introduce my spring intern, Virginia Dry of Plainfield. And Virginia is a junior online student at Liberty College. She's a history major. And she has a desire to become a national park ranger. And she's already got a head start because she's been volunteering from time to time at St. Gaudens. And so she'll be with us throughout the spring. And she
That was the amazing thing. Everyone knew their number, and that's how they were identified. And still to this day, like decades later, will still identify themselves. I was number 25, I was number 16, I was number 112, or whatever it is. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That was quite a program. Well, that's great. Great to see you carrying on and in some ways revitalizing the tradition of the North Country interns. Wonderful. Okay, so I guess moving forward, we can officially call the meeting of the Governor Executive Council to order. Let's begin. To begin, I would ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 22nd, 2021. Governor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Questions? Councilor Stevens?
Correction, I believe, as part of Mock 105, reports and findings, we submitted the schedule. That was the only adjustment.
Okay. I apologize. I don't have a copy of the minutes in front of me. Sorry, bear with me.
We submitted, that was at the January 17th, but that was approved at the January 22nd.
So that would make me think that would have been
It was
approved.
presented and we approved it.
Presented and approved on the, right, it was approved on the 22nd, right?
No, the schedule was approved on January 7th, which would have been part of the meeting minutes for the 22nd meeting.
We should have had that in there, but the schedule was approved.
Yeah.
Under Mock 150.
Karen might know
Sorry.
more about it. The Secretary of State does that.
Yeah. So do you, is there a note that we can make in the meeting minutes? I mean, I guess we already approved the ones from the 7th, for the 22nd, just identifying that the schedule was approved.
At the January 7th meeting?
Yeah, I guess technically it was approved,
It was approved at the 7th meeting, so in the January 20th.
so we approved the meeting minutes on the 22nd of the 7th, so are we allowed to go back
I
and?
think we can.
Okay, all right. We will make a note of it when, on the day it was approved.
Yep. It was discussed and approved at the last meeting. schedule.
No, that was the January 7th
I
meeting.
think that was the January 7th meeting.
Okay.
I don't,
All right.
I can be honest, I don't remember
All right.
myself, so, okay. Well, let's go back and just confirm exactly when it was discussed and approved, and whether it was the 7th or the 22nd. Let's just make sure we know it. That's a good point, because that sets the schedule into effect, for the next 6 months. Great. All right, thank you. Any other questions or recommendations, changes to the meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The meeting minutes are approved. Next, from the Office of the Secretary of State, we have our civil commissions. Could I please have a motion to confirm the list of civil commissions?
So moved.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the list of civil commissions, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The list of civil commissions is approved. Are there any new names to place on the list of civil commissions? Notaries or justice of peace changes? Okay, hearing no new nominations, the matter of civil commissions is concluded. We have 2 resignations to accept today. From the Fire Standards and Training Commission, could I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Justin Cutting of Hampton?
Motion?
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the resignation, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The resignation is accepted. To the New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Industry Board, could I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Cameron Eldred of Hanover?
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That resignation is accepted, and that concludes our resignations. We have a pretty long list of confirmations today. So, to begin, could I please have a motion to confirm Nicholas Jett of Brookline to the Board of Home Inspectors?
Moved.
Second?
Is there a motion and a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Mr. Jett is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm James Gray of Derry to the Board of Home Inspectors?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Mr. Gray is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Christina Gribben of Holderness to the Board of Mental Health Practice?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Ms. Gribben is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Carrie Fiol of Hooksett
So moved.
to the Board of Mental Health Practice?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And Ms. Carrie Fiol is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Claire Timbus of Dunbarton to the Board of Veterinary Medicine?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Claire is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Charles Whitty of Hampton to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Whitty is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Peter Rayno of Hampton to the Community Development Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Peter Rayno is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Hamilton Kranz Jr. of Dover to the Compensation Appeals Board?
So moved.
With a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And Hamilton is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Eric Bernard of Manchester to the Compensation Appeals Board?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Bernard is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Dexter Robley of Portsmouth to the Electricians Board?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Mr. Robley? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Robley is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Ronald Sebastian of Derry to the Fire Standards and Training Commission?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Sebastian is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Paul Perry Jr. of Derry to the Mechanical Licensing Board?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Paul Perry. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Perry is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Joan Barthold of Lyme to the Medical Review Subcommittee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Barthold is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Matt Cabana of Temple to the New Hampshire Real Estate Commission?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Cabana is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Susan Dupree of Concord to the Site Evaluation Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Dupree is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Ryan Terrell of Nashua to the State Board of Education?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counselor.
Governor, I just wanted to say, I think this is a superb nomination. I spent some time talking to Ryan. I think he brings a unique perspective to the State Board of Education. He's open-minded to new ideas and educational opportunities, and I think it was a great pick.
Great, thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Counselor Kenny.
I also had a wonderful conversation with Ryan Terrell. Young man, very talented, lots of energy. But there was one point I thought he was being put up for the Commissioner of Education, but I soon realized it was the State Board of Education. But, someone, I think that's going to, with his life experiences and how he was able to, you know, his family really valued education, and although it was an alternative type of education, I think his forward thinking on the different types of education is only going to benefit the State Board of Education, and full of energy, life, and he's going to be a good one. So thank you, Governor.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Burning the nose, Brian Terrell is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Richard Sala of Dorchester to the State Board of Education?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, there's a second, thank you. Any discussion on Mr. Sala? Joe Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. Richard is quite a talented young man. He's a Mustanger in the Marine Corps, someone who's brought himself up through the lower ranks to the higher ranks. Obviously, very gifted in academics, went on to law school, coming out of the Marine Corps and worked his way through law school, and lives in a small community of Dorchester, population 300 people. But he too has a great perspective on education, and in talking to him, he says New Hampshire does it quite well as it is. We just need to improve upon what it is that we can do better. And I thought that was a very good outlook. And so he's teaching constitutional law at Vermont Law School. And so I think he's going to bring a lot of good attributes to the State Board of Education.
That's great, thank you. Any other discussion on Mr. Sala? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
In the opposition, Mr. Saul is confirmed. Can I please have a motion to confirm Andrew Garthwaite of Lebanon to the State Historical Resources Council?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Garthwaite is confirmed. Can I please have a motion to confirm Aaron Hammerstead of Harrisville for the State Historical Resources Council?
So moved.
Any second? Second. Second for Aaron. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aaron's confirmed. And could I please have a motion to confirm Tim Sappington of Randolph to the State Historical Resources Council?
So moved.
Any discussion?
I had a great conversation with Mr. Sappington of Randolph, someone who's previously served on this board. But there's one word that describes him, it would be loquacious. He loves to talk, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with him, knowing about his family, his profession, and what he's worked on for the last decade. So I think he's got a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, and he's a good pick to continue on the board.
I'd also like to add, please, the long-time chair sadly passed away. And that came up in my conversation with Mr. Sappington.
You know, it's something else I would note, Randolph being right next to Jefferson, in which I was at the horrible fire this weekend. When you talk about it, I was talking to some individuals yesterday afternoon that were kind of cleaning up after the fire, the history that was in that building, late 1800s, I think, but they were kind of in the process of moving, and I think it was shortly after a budget meeting. I think the budget meeting had just ended at about 7 o'clock when the fire broke out and just consumed that building in minutes. It was quite sad, because those small towns up there just have amazing history, and unfortunately Jefferson lost a lot there, so always good to get some perspective from the northern part of the state. So hearing no further discussion, all in favor of Mr. Sappington, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, Mr. Sappington is confirmed. I do have a few nominations just to read into the record today. To the Board of Accountancy, I nominate Jeffrey Seifert of Bedford. To the Board of Dental Examiners, I nominate Howard Luddington of Stratham. To the Board of Licensed Dietitians, I nominate Lisa Prosper of Concord. To the Board of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy, I nominate Raymond Hebert of Manchester. To the Board of Nursing, I nominate Jimmy Taylor of Center Harbor. To the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors, I nominate Dick Anagnost of Bedford, Matt Benson of Concord, and Nancy Merrill of Lebanon. As the Commissioner for the Department of Education, I nominate Frank Edelberg of Wilton. To the Judicial Retirement Plan Board of Trustees, I nominate Deborah Butler of Concord. To the New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Industry Board, I nominate Lawrence Blaney of Hooksett and Robert Marazzo of Plainfield. To the Occupational Therapy Governing Board, I nominate Sarah Hinckley of Dover. To the Oil Fund Disbursement Board, I nominate Shane McKinney of Albany and Tom Frawley of Lyme. To the Respiratory Care Practitioners Governing Board, I nominate Sarah Stone of Alstead. To the Rivers Management Advisory Committee, I nominate Michelle Tremblay of Pennacook. To the State Board of Education, I nominate Andrew Klein of Bedford. To the Waste Management Council, I nominate Eric Steinhauser of Concord and Anthony Andre Belanger of Tilton. And that concludes the nominations for today's meeting. So moving on to our consent calendar agenda, can I begin by having a motion to adopt the consent calendar agenda? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or request to remove any of the items from the consent calendar agenda? Noting that we do not have any items this week for items 1, 2, and 3, only as part of the nominations and confirmations, which is item 4.
I just did have a question. I'm not sure if I need to remove it, but it just had to do with the The salary discrepancy from the Attorney General's office, is that based off of experience? Or is that based off of their step differences between the two employees, or?
Governor and Council, and good morning, Councilor Kenny. Yes, our salaries are generally based on the experience level of the attorneys.
Okay.
We are not on a step system. We have a very unique salary structure within state government that generally gives discretion in the first instance to the Attorney General to recommend salaries to this body. And generally, the template we've used, or the formula we've used, is based on experience, particularly for incoming attorneys.
Great. Thank you.
Any further discussion or any insight? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the consent calendar agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent calendar is approved. Moving on to our regular agenda, and we do have two table items, one from Health and Human Services that we'll take at the end of Health and Human Services, one from Fish and Game, and as Fish and Game does not have any items today, we'll just take that at the very end if that's okay. Is the director joining us from Fish and Game? Okay, great.
I just want to leave that one on the table, no objection.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Great. Well, we'll deal with it at the end. We can leave it on.
Okay.
So moving on to that regular agenda, I've now asked for a motion to adopt agenda item number 6 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Economic and Housing Stability.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 6 is approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 8, noting that agenda from Department Health. Sorry, I'll ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 8 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Children, Youth, and Families, noting that item 7, previously from New Hampshire Hospital, had been withdrawn by the agency. So we'll move on to DCY. Item 8.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8 has been approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 9, 10, and 10A from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Behavioral Health.
Second.
Any discussion? Any? Councilor Whittle?
I need to have a couple of questions here with the Commissioner.
Sure.
While she's here. And this goes back to our last meeting, and I asked for information about the subcontractors doing transportation with, for the MCO providers. And I have got, unless it's lost in cyberspace, I have heard nothing from the Department of Health and Human Services regarding what is inside, what the department's qualifications are for the subcontractors of the MCOs.
What the department's qualifications are for the broker or the transportation providers that are contracted with the broker?
What qualifications does the state put on the providers? How much can they use Uber and Lyft? Is there anything in our contract with the MCOs that tells them what they can do subcontracting transportation providers?
Okay. I apologize. I thought that we had answered that question during the meeting when we had said that less than 1% we are only using.
I asked for it in writing. I want to see the contract,
Okay.
a particular part of the contract.
I'll get that for you this week.
Would it be appropriate to ask a COVID question?
Sure.
So recently, one of the major health organizations said there's an extremely high rate of false positive for the CPR test. A, are you aware of that? And B, are we still taking that test out to 32 cycles?
The PCR test is what I'm assuming that you're talking about, right? And I think the data does show that if you cycle that test too high, above 35 cycles, that it can have a high rate of false positive. We follow the standards by the U.S. Public Health Department on what our cycle time should be for our PCR test. So if you'd like me to get you the exact cycle time that we're now using, I can do that for you and send you an email with that information.
Awesome.
We're in line with national.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to item number 9, the website, this is a costly website, close to $200,000. And a question, and I had a chance to discuss this with Commissioner Goulet, ADA compliance. And what I've learned is that we are now ADA compliant. We're moving forward. And all hands on deck with the COVID-19 site. And this is by no means a criticism. But it would be great if this vendor perhaps could incorporate some of the standards that we have in place. However, they date back to 2005 with our web standards.
So what you're asking is that the vendor that's holding the contract for number 9 to come in compliance with the standards that we are currently using for
Yes.
COVID-19?
And I did not see those submitted as part of the contract. And again,
So our intent is to take this site over and it be fully managed by the OIT in the very near future. So I think that will take care of some of the concerns that you have around it, and I think that is the intent here at the end of this extension. But we can certainly address it with the vendor.
I would just like to suggest that because I know how busy Commissioner Goulet is and how lean and mean that staff is. And again, all hands on deck with the COVID-19 site. This is a very expensive website, and I think at a minimum they should be doing this work for you.
And if I may, I think Commissioner Goulet, are you on the line with us this morning?
Yes, I am, Governor. Good morning, folks. Dennis Goulet, Commissioner of the Department of Information Technology. Just to clarify, the platform that we're building all our new websites out on is fully ADA compliant, although after doing some research yesterday after my conversation with Councilor Stevens, it does appear that that this site under question is contractually obliged to be as well. So we are working on, with the Department of Health and Human Services and our vendors, SilverTech, on a full rework of all of these DHHS sites. It's a very large project, and we're partnering with the DHHS folks on that.
Great. But we'll definitely be able to get some more information.
Thank you.
Councilor Wilmington.
Commissioner, I had quite a bit of feedback yesterday from people trying to schedule their second vaccinations. I'd love to hear the update on where we are on that. And also some concern that the state is saying that vaccinations can be spread out in different types of duration, number of weeks between the 2 injections beyond what the manufacturers recommended. I'm wondering if you could comment on that.
So the second dose appointments, additional ones were opened up yesterday. We expect additional ones to open up through the days and weeks ahead, so that people can schedule more in line with what they expected. I think part of the issue is when we opened up our phase 1B vaccination, we had the influx of several 100,000 people booking appointments. And at the same time, they would get the appointment and go right back in and try to book their second appointment. So I think the overall of hundreds of thousands of people booking those appointments and then trying to book a second appointment at the same time became a very heavy lift. So we did put in second dose appointments as of yesterday. We opened up more second dose appointments yesterday. So in the coming days, they should not have a problem booking their second dose appointments. And it really isn't a matter of vaccine availability. It is there. It is getting the mechanics of the site up. We have the dose to vaccinate them. It's peace of mind. They want to know that they have the appointment 3 weeks out or 4 weeks out. Now, there is some flexibility for that second dose. Depending on the vaccine, it's either 21 days, 28 days. And CDC and our federal partners will tell you that you can't get your second dose prior to that time, but there is some flexibility after that time, whether it's a week or 2 weeks. Now, do we have the exact number of weeks? I wouldn't go out several months for sure, but if you're a week after day 28 or a week or 2 weeks after day 21 or 28, I don't think it's a problem, and it hasn't been communicated with us from the national level that it is a problem. Most states are doing it.
And if I just could, I think, as the Commissioner just did a great job of outlining, tens of thousands more second doses are being booked this week and next week. And as of right now, anyone who's gotten their first shot can book and get their second shot within the 3 or 4 week time frame. So there are some second shots that are booked way out. Those will all be moved up as we keep piling in more and more of these second dose scheduling. Though all those folks that might be 6 or 7 or 8 weeks out will be able to move up for that second dose. The real problem stems from the fact that it's a federal scheduling system. We tried to upload all the new times into the system, and it couldn't handle them all. We were uploading a lot of new times. So basically the team is uploading small batches of new times, and that's why over the course of the day yesterday, today, and tomorrow, you'll see more and more keep coming online. The federal system just couldn't handle the influx that we were giving it. So we're kind of spoon-feeding it bit by bit. But over the next few days, literally tens of thousands of new appointments. And a lot of folks have already booked them yesterday.
A lot of people have booked yesterday. We've assured everyone that their second dose is there for their taking. We've asked for a little bit of patience. This is unprecedented trying to schedule, 300,000 people for 2 doses. And we do have to spoon-feed the system. So we are asking for a little bit of patience. What we were finding last week is that people were getting their first dose at 8 a.m. and by 9 a.m. they were calling because they were upset because they couldn't book their second dose. And we just say, just let us open up additional appointments. You will have no problem getting in. And once we opened them yesterday, people were able to book very, very heavily all day yesterday. In the coming days, there will be tens of thousands of more appointments.
And I think, if I may add, the hope is that as we get to Group 2A, we're going to be on a fully state system. I think everyone agrees this federal system is a real problem. It is clunky, it is messy, we can't really control it. If there's a problem, we can't slow it down, we can't speed it up. We're really we're stuck with them, so to say. So the new state system, a one-stop shop, not multiple appointments and all this, a one-stop shop state system will be open, hopefully and running by the time Group 2A comes along.
Definitely be by 2A.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that in the coming weeks that it will be fully operational. Right now we're booking out into March and in some cases April for those appointments. So we will be on the DMS system, which is our state operating system, well before that 2A group comes in.
I completely appreciate your efforts and your staff's efforts to get the system, accommodate the federal system, get the appointments scheduled. I am concerned about advice that's being given that there can be an extended time between doses. I think there's no science to back that up. I'm not seeing that with the CDC. I'm fearful that people might actually think that they can schedule an extended time between doses. And we've even seen some reports that this could result in variants of the virus. So I think that we should make sure that we're scheduling people following the science, scheduling people within the appropriate time frame, and making sure the public knows that it's important that they actually get the second vaccine within the appropriate time frame.
Right, so you can't get it before day 28
Right.
or before day 21.
Right.
So likely that we're not going to be able to book everybody on day 28,
Right.
right? So it's going to run out over several days after day 28. It's just the mechanics of vaccinating hundreds of thousands of people, or even tens of thousands week to week. We are on calls with the CDC, Moderna, Pfizer every week, and we can certainly collaborate with them and make sure that we're not doing anything that they feel is going to put our citizens in harm's way. But as of right now, the feedback we've gotten, both in New Hampshire and across the country, is that there is an expectation that you're not going to be able to do everybody on day 28 or day 29.
What's the maximum?
There really is no maximum. They've given us the flexibility of a couple of weeks, basically, because they haven't studied it far enough out yet, because obviously that time frame hasn't passed yet. So they're giving us a couple of weeks in there, and we do expect that if it's not day 28, that it's going to be day 30, day 32, day 35. We don't have any reason to believe that it's going to go beyond that. What happens at times is someone that has a first vaccination, they end up not being able to schedule a second vaccination in that time frame for a variety of reasons, not necessarily our scheduling issues, Are they in the hospital? Did they have to leave the state? Did they have to quarantine at home? Did they have a family member? The question becomes, if you get it to day 40, let's say, on a 28-day vaccination, do you have to start the cycle all over again? Because that is the big question. If we have to start the cycle all over again for those folks, it's going to be a significant hardship. Probably an unnecessary hardship. And that's why we're waiting for further data. The delay in the second dose is not always because of our system. The delay in the second dose is because of life sometimes. And we don't want to have to start people all over again.
If I may, anyone who we see that is scheduling their second dose way out, or maybe even hasn't scheduled their second dose beyond, if they're scheduling it 6, 7, 8 weeks out, the state isn't waiting. We'll proactively, we give them a little time, and then we'll be proactively reaching out to those individuals, as we did with this last batch, and say, hey, all these appointments are open. Why don't you come back in? So we're not going to wait for the citizens to get to 6 or 7 weeks. If we see that they're out there, we are actually on the phones or on the emails saying, hey, Bob, we see that you're 7 weeks out for whatever reason. We have appointments 4 weeks out.
We're contacting thousands of people a day.
Very proactive.
To either move their appointments up, to reschedule their second doses. We have an entire team dedicated to just getting people in an area that's convenient for them to get vaccinated at a time frame that works for them and at a time frame that works for the schedule. And between the snowstorm yesterday and opening up additional spots, the issue that happened last week with some cancellations in the North Country, we had Littleton Hospital take up a huge vaccination effort. And in a day, we can contact 400, 600, 800 people and get them moving in the right direction. And at times, thousands of people through email and text. And we've done all that for the last several weeks.
Councilor?
Yes. Commissioner, I've had a lot of requests and inquiries regarding the wait list. And, that was an isolated incident up until this point with Littleton. And my comments have been, we have not dumped any vaccine at this point. We have not had any issues with waste by any means with our vaccines. So I applaud you, the National Guard, and everyone who's working out there. Additionally, we're going to have another 5% increase, is that correct, being distributed through our pharmacies?
We don't know
At
the
the end of
exact
the month?
amount yet, but
Okay.
we do know that as of February 11th, our private pharmacies in the state will be getting an allocation of vaccine from the federal government to deliver and administer to people within phase 1B right now. They have to be in line with our phases in New Hampshire, so we do know that they're coming online February 11th, but we don't have exact numbers yet.
And thank you. I know as per our conversations earlier, you've got 20,000 people that you are juggling at any given
Callback
moment.
list, trying to move people up, things like that. And just generally people that have had a hard time getting through. Either they went on, and what we're hearing a lot often is that people want this confirmation back that, yes, we received all your information, here's a confirmation email. And the VAN system doesn't always allow us. After that second point, it doesn't allow you to do that. So they get very anxious because in a typical registration scenario, you will get a confirmation email back to say, yep, we received everything. VANS doesn't function like a typical scheduling software. I think that's being kind. It functions very differently. So we're getting an influx of calls saying, I just want to confirm that even though it said I have this appointment, I want a confirmation from you on the phone that I have this appointment. So a lot of our calls are coming that way also.
Thank you.
Councilor?
The calls that I'm getting are from the folks that are in 1B, are they hearing that people are getting their second shot before they're getting their first shot? And they're really complaining about that.
The second doses and the first doses are sent and distributed differently to the state. So the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine sends us 20,000 round number doses each week. They are first dose vaccinations. We also get our second dose allocation each week, which is completely separate. So they're right. There are people getting their second doses right now before people that are scheduled in March to get their first dose because they're due for their second dose. We're not going to have, as our conversation said, someone that got their first dose 3 weeks ago wait for 2 months to get their second dose. We need to get it to them as close to that 21 and 28 day mark as we can. So that is correct.
How do we fix that?
If I may, we shouldn't fix that. So the federal government gives us more vaccine, right? So if we were to wait for everyone to get their first dose before we administer second doses, we would literally have to wait 2 months, and then people wouldn't get their second dose, and the problem is then the second dose might not work as well, right? So unfortunately, the first and second dose are kind of independent of each other in terms of once someone has their 1 and 2 dose allocated, they got to get it within that 21, 28 days, even though feds aren't giving us enough to get the first doses out, the rest of the first doses out until March.
But the fear is that as they do more data, more research, and they find out that there is an end date on the second dose, that if it's given after day 60, you have to start the cycle over again. We don't have that information yet, but we don't want to be vaccinating people at day 50 and find out that it's not effective anymore. So we're staying as close to the 21 and 28 day program as we can.
And it's some interesting data too that both the Johnson & Johnson shot that is going to be made available hopefully within the next month or so, which is a one-stop shop, which is pretty amazing, as well as Moderna and the Pfizer. When you get that second shot and you allow it to your antibodies to build up that second shot, or you get the Johnson & Johnson first shot and you allow it to build, the reduction of hospitalization and fatality they're claiming is 100%. They're claiming that the severity of symptoms drops to virtually 0 in terms of needing hospital. You still may get some symptoms, but nothing that would require hospitalization or fatality. I mean, that's an amazing statistic that I know the media hasn't been pushing. And is it real? I hope it is, because all three are making that claim right now, that it really does get rid of the fatality issue, which is the best ultimate result. So that's why the second shot is so important.
And vaccination and for your body to build the antibodies, it's not the day you take your second shot. So typically your body is going to take 10 to 14 days to build the antibodies after that second shot. So what we're really looking for is the hospitalization case rates and our fatality rate after that 14 days, after full vaccination, which is after the second shot or first shot for the new vaccination. So we are watching those.
Councilor Kenny.
So I have more of a logistical question. So the mobile clinic is shutting down in Camworth, as I understand it, and so it's going to stretch out Carroll County from North Conway to Wolford to those hospitals.
Yep.
So obviously it's going to be a lot more travel distance for residents to get to southern and northern Carroll County. And so I know that there are fixed sites that have been built out in North Country, but what is the rationale of pulling out mobile sites to go to fixed sites, and what is the plan for the next month or two?
So in the North Country, largely the hospitals have kind of come together, Littleton being one of them that just did the clinic, and we expect that they're going to continue to do clinics. We had one hospital that actually built out a drive-through vaccination clinic, Memorial Hospital, like you said. I think that if we see that the volume is higher than what we expected, that we can build out more sites, for sure. Or if we have complaints that they don't have the accessibility that they want, that they're driving too far. I mean, with 13 sites across the state, there is travel time, even not just in the North Country, but even in the southern part of the state, there is travel time to get to the vaccination sites. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to send 100 doses of vaccine to 50 different sites, right? Because then that's when you get to the waste part of it. So we have to consolidate our sites so that we waste very little. And that we have dozens of healthcare organizations that have volunteered to open up a site for us, that they're willing to staff it, but we don't have a vaccination to give them. We can send vaccination to all the primary care physicians and put 10 doses in every office, but what's going to happen is we're going to waste those doses. Because there's no way that individual people are going to get 10 patients in every day. We're just going to end up wasting it. And that's part of what's going on in the North Country right now. We have to consolidate to have a certain number of sites. But as our vaccination allocation picks up, you're going to see additional sites open.
So I'm just going to counter-argue that.
Sure.
So from Rochester to Portsmouth, 20 minutes, and I can go to 3 major hospitals probably within 10 minutes apart from each hospital.
But they're not all doing vaccination.
And they're not all doing vaccination, I understand that. But that's just an idea of, hospital, breakout. If I go into the North Country, you know, it could be an hour, hour and a half to get to a hospital. That's if, like you said, they're doing vaccine distribution. So my concern is that when you take out a DMV well-established central site in Carroll County, what you're in essence doing is you're putting pressure back onto the public. And so while they were giving out 100 dosages approximately a day up there, now soon they're not going to have that alternative. So I just use Carroll County as an example. Coos County is a whole different animal because you know many small communities that are, you know, in some cases you go from one end to the other, it's 2 hours. So my thoughts are you need to be very nimble, you need to be very responsive, and it's kind of like the food bank. When they say that they're giving out food for the day, whether it's Orem, Berlin, or Lancaster, and it's well publicized, everybody lines up their cars and they go ahead and food's distributed. The food runs out. But you know, and I like the idea that they had a drive-through up at Littleton, up at the hospital to get people vaccinated. But you're going to have to create something like that that's very nimble, mobile, and responsive. Because once you withdraw those mobile clinics, people are going to be like, where do I go? Oh, I've got to go 1 hour and a half, 2 hours to go to a hospital in the middle of the winter.
Well, we will always have the ability to do mobile clinics. The issue right now is whether we have the vaccine to give to a mobile clinic to get it done. And like I said, dividing all of those doses amongst dozens of places puts a high risk. Number one, we're not as efficient. We're not doing high throughput. That's what we want to do, high throughput, get as many people vaccinated as possible. And number two is not waste any vaccine. But what I'll do is I'll talk with Carrie Plummer, who is doing our vaccine coordination, and get a map drawn up of where our current vaccination sites are for the North Country and where our potential and prospective are. Because we have dozens of sites around the state, North Country South, that are prospective sites that as our vaccine allocation increases, we can open additional sites. We don't publicly talk about those because we need the vaccine to be able to open those sites. But let me get you a list, though. Maybe they'll relieve some of your anxiety about not having enough sites in the North Country. I think that when the vaccine allocation is there, we will have the sites to make sure people aren't driving several hours to the vaccine site.
And just lastly, obviously you have the public health network that you work with up there. But however you lay it out, I've got access to thousands of emails and social media. So whatever you're communicating, I know you do it through Channel 9 quite well, but whatever you're communicating to the North Country, let me know so that I can push it out through my circles so that lets people know that they hired on their executive counselor for a reason to get the word out. Because I think it's important in that region of the state, because there is a mentality that the further away you are from Concord, oh, they forgot about us, oh, they don't care about us, or how are they, thinking about us. So, I use the example last meeting with the DMV with Elizabeth Alecki and in the DMV office that's open one day a month up in Berlin. If they missed that, 2 months go by and their license is expired. That's just an example, but I just think the more attention you give up there in small quantities and people have some type of access, the better return you'll get.
Could we be put on the the media list distribution when the media advisory is going out on updates to distribution?
Like a press release?
Yeah, if there's any news going out from the agency, it would be great. And we could pass it along again to our constituents as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Any further questions, whether it be on COVID, the vaccine, or even things 9, 10, and 10?
This is on contract 10, and it's just a question about the LRG Healthcare Laconia. So we're going to give them a fairly large sum of over $300,000 for this program for mental health. But they're in a bankruptcy situation right now in the hospital. So we're going to be giving them state contracts, and they filed for Chapter 11. How does that all work together with giving them contracts them continuing to move forward, or if they are continuing to move forward.
Right, so they're committed to continuing to do the doorway. The question is that whoever acquires them, are they going to be committed? The status of that money that's coming into their facility through the bankruptcy process, that is something that I need to defer to the attorneys in the room, because I'm not sure how legally that gets restructured.
She said as she stared at the Attorney General.
Attorney General.
We can look at that.
McDonald.
So we have a hospital, Mr. Attorney General, that is in bankruptcy, filed Chapter 11, who's now receiving state contracts to provide, in this case, mental health services. Is there any interruption, or do we have to say stop until that's resolved, we move forward? How's that work?
I have not seen this contract, but I will tell you, Counselor, that there was a bankruptcy proceeding, and the outcome of that is the court has approved a transaction where the assets of Lakes Region General Hospital, to include the Hospital of Laconia and the Hospital in Franklin, will be combined with Concord Hospital. And obviously that is,
A stable hospital.
stable, financially secure provider. So I, again, without having looked at these contracts, I would anticipate that the Doorways relationship would survive and would be taken over by Concord. The Concord transaction is still awaiting approval by our charitable trust unit and undergoing antitrust review, but it's on a very short timeline, so we'll know with certainty.
We have no reason to believe that they wouldn't continue to operate the doorway program, and if Concord chooses not to go forward with the program, they will give us due time to be able to procure a vendor for the area.
Right. So obviously in the past we've had problems with specific nonprofits and their capacity to take on state funding. I know this is a large, several institutions that's desperately needing that, it's going to receive support. But I just asked the same type of question, which is, are they taking on large sums of money through state contracts, so they can continue to provide the service? And do they have the capacity to provide that service?
With Concord's partnership, I believe they do, yes.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on these items? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor of items 9, 10, and 10A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining on 10.
Noting the abstention on item 10. Oh, this one's the items are approved. Thank you. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 11 and 12 from the Department of Health and Human Services, from the Department of Public Health Services.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And items 11 and 12 are approved. And we do have a table item from Health and Human Services. I'd ask for a motion to remove former table item 20, or table. I'd ask for a motion to remove table item number 21 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Behavioral Health.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor of removing item 21 from the table, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is now removed from the table. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 21 for the Department of Health and Human Services.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on item 21?
Discussion, please.
Wheeler, sure.
At the last meeting, a couple of us had asked that this item be tabled so we could look into it more. And I didn't receive any information until late in the weekend, with just 2 business days before this executive council meeting to make a decision on these items. That's unacceptable. We have a whole pile to go through. And when we need information, we need it in a timely fashion. And it didn't come from your office, it came from Harbor Homes. I know what they're going to say about the money they're going to get. They want the money. I want to know. My question's answered by the department.
I just believe that's accurate. I'm going to ask Charitable Trust to come up and speak to that packet, because it was sent through the Charitable Trust.
Yes, well, Tom Donovan, Director of Charitable Trust, in the Attorney General's Office, Government Counselors. At the last GNC meeting, there was a request made, I wasn't here, but there was a request made for financial information with respect to past financial material that is received by DHHS. I believe I sent that out to Governor and Councilor more than a week ago, to everyone. And that included the FY 2020 audit and monthly financials, internal financials going back several months, and along with a letter that came from Harbor Home. So I think we've had that out for more than a week to Councilor.
Well, it could be lost in cyberspace because we've had some trouble, but thank you. And I appreciate your explanation. Did that information address them using their line of credit?
Yes, it did. I think it did.
Their assets, okay.
Yep.
Further discussion, Councilor Kansas.
Thank you, Governor. When you take a look at that item, and you look at the folks that are actually getting the money, it's not Harbor Homes. Harbor Homes is merely a holding company.
It's a contract with the other.
You know, I understand that, but we don't look at the others and see what their financial positions are.
We do have the ability to look at anybody that we contract with, and a lot of these providers are people that we do business with in other lines. So we do have the ability to audit any of our vendors, and if we needed to, we could.
So then why wouldn't the funds be distributed directly to those vendors and not through Harbor Homes? Yes.
So I can recognize Katja Fox is on the phone, who can explain the process of this funding.
So, good morning, Governor and Executive Council members. I'm Katja Fox, the Director for the Division for Behavioral Health for the Department of Health and Human Services. And the answer to your question is that when we went and embarked on having this opportunity to provide state opioid response funds to a system that really was struggling to address the needs of our families and friends in our communities, we knew that this needed to be something that was shepherded by one organization rather than try to contract with what are now 14 organizations. And these are organizations that rely very heavily on not only fundraising, which they do quite a considerable amount of, but on these state opioid response dollars. So our approach was to have one organization that would subcontract with all these smaller organizations in order to provide the back office functions as well as education and training, and really have the oversight of these 14 small organizations. These are organizations that developed through a grassroots effort and through people who had been severely impacted by the opioid crisis. And they were not in a position to have billing and to have training and to understand the accreditation process. So we contracted initially with what is now known as Harbor Care, and then we actually went out for a procurement, and they were the resultant contractor for that and approved by a previous council. And really, it's not just pass-through, and it would be extremely difficult for each of those organizations to have to contract with the state given the length of time and the complexity of contracting.
But isn't there somebody else in the charitable division that could do the same thing that Harbor Homes is doing?
If there is, nobody's bid on it. I mean, ultimately, we have to procure the contract, and we put it out to bid, and we evaluate the bidders. And if Harbor Homes is deemed to be the best company bidding on this contract, we cannot go out and try to find alternates. That would be against our state law.
And Commissioner, if I may, all of those peer support recovery organizations are charitable organizations, so they do report to us separately. They are small, they are grassroots. I've been out to Keene, to the Keene Serenity Center. It is small, it's grassroots. They need the financial backup that another organization can provide. They need some HR support. I could think of another one, North Country Serenity Center. That is also part of this. And they're working with Harbor Homes to help them with a corporate restructuring. Again, we're in the know about that. But these small organizations have not been paid since October, and we hear about that. So, and they don't have a lot of other resources. They're small. They are very small, and probably, as the Commissioner said, or Dr. Fox, probably could not contract on their own with the state for these resources.
This contract goes out to September 2021. I think the last council suggested that we go out to bid for this contract. I think Councilor Prescott was very involved in that discussion. Did we ever go out to bid?
Costa, can you give us the last time you went out to bid for this contract?
Yes, we did. I don't have the exact date. I can get that as there may be further conversations. But yes, we did go out to bid. And as the Commissioner had indicated, this was the only applicant at the time. And it was within the last year, within which, and it was Councilor Prescott's urging and doing the department's due diligence and putting it out there to see if there were other potential contractors.
We just had a lengthy discussion that Councilor Kenny brought up in regards to the funds that are going to a company that's in bankruptcy. Item 10.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, we can all say that the financials on Harbor Homes, if you use the line of credits, meet their criteria. But if you withdraw that line of credit, you don't need it. You don't meet the days of coverage that you're looking for.
I respectfully disagree with that.
Well, what are the numbers? Send it so it's clear, because you sent us a report, or Harbor Home sent us a report, with the financial data, including lines of credit. You didn't send us one like I asked. If you withdraw those lines of credit, what are their days that they have?
Yep. So the financials...
Wait, did you send it to us?
Yes.
You
And
did.
it shows with and without lines of credit included. And they comply,
Right, kind of like-
and they comply with the more than 30 days, either with or without the line of credit money included.
I'm kind of like Councilor Wheeler, maybe, so can you send it to me again?
Sure.
In hard copy.
Absolutely, Counselor. Counselor Stevens?
They've provided us with 4 lines of credit. I've spoken with Mr. Heller and hours with he and his staff. So they have shared those lines of credit. Additionally, most nonprofits on a good day may have a surge tank for 30 days. I think they're pretty close to having close to 60 days of funds to be operational. The complexity of this contract was not evident in 21, but getting into the weeds, talking with these local RCOs, getting on the phone with Representative Joe Hannon, who's president of the board at SOS in Hampton. Great insights, and they are doing amazing work. They're incredible. Their fiduciary responsibility is exemplary. When I expressed concern about not being able to use these funds for phone cards, for minutes, he said, we've got it covered. You know, they are very much ahead of it. So this is a complex project. and they're working very hard, all 14 of them. I wish I had known at our last meeting the complexity of these organizations. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilor Kenny?
Thank you, Governor. So I've spoken with the Harbor Homes team about their financials, and they have quite a bit of money, in their bank accounts to provide the program services they provide. And obviously, they have a substantial line of credit. One of the concerns I had, 8-10 years ago with Tri-County Cap was they overextended themselves, and their financials didn't match up to the programs that they were providing. But so I feel comfortable that with the financial resources they have, that they're going to provide the services they say they're going to provide and still be solvent. There's no doubt the local RCOs and the services and employment they provide are in desperate need of this funding to continue. Or otherwise, it's going to be layoff of jobs, layoff of, if you will, services. So based off the discussion I had with the Harbor Homes team earlier this week, I don't feel so bad moving forward with this, but it's nowhere near the Tri-County Cap situation was several years ago. This is a good management organization based off of the material and the conversation that I had earlier this week.
Harbor Homes has undertaken over the last year almost a restructuring process where they have cut loose some of their lines of business that were not profitable. They stopped bidding on contracts that weren't directly in line with their mission, and I think you're exactly right that sometimes when an organization grows too fast, they start to overextend themselves. And it is a good measure to step back and look at their business model and decide what they're going to continue to do and what they're not going to. And they have done that in the last year, and we've seen that with them not bidding on state contracts that they have historically held.
To that point, they have over $15 million in real estate. They're selling some of that off. So, looking
You see an effort.
Yeah, I do. And we know that any nonprofit gets into trouble when they get into bricks and mortar. So I applaud them for selling off some of their real estate.
As we saw last year, Governor, the debt service on that real estate sometimes doesn't cover what they owe. So I'm not too sure that the lines of credit that they've been given probably didn't include the real estate that they have. But that's all right. Time will tell.
Further discussion?
So I'd like to move the questions.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of item 21?
Aye.
Oh, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
None of the 2 noes. Formally table item 21 is approved. Moving on to our items from the Department of Transportation. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 13 through 18B from DOT.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Gaffney.
13.
Item 13. Do you have the Commissioner on this? Or oh, good morning, Commissioner. I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there. Hiding behind Charlie. Now we go.
Good morning, Governor. Mary Sanchez, Director, Victoria Chia, Department of Transportation.
Good morning. Number 13 relates to exit 4A. And we had another one that was larger than that at the last council meeting. Where are those funds coming from if we've not approved 4A?
So we're spending the dollars that were programmed in the 10-year plan. So we have money identified for preliminary engineering, for right-of-way acquisition, and then for the construction phase. And so we're proceeding with the full acquisitions and the relocation expenses associated with the takings of the parcels that were already underway before the design-build contract proposal was open.
Silly question, but what happens if your bids that come in are close to the ones that you had for the design-build? Where's that money going to come from?
So we are still very confident that we can deliver the 4A construction for approximately what was budgeted. We're still working through the selection and award of a contract to the design team. So it's premature to get into all the details around the scope changes that we're suggesting. That might be necessary to contain costs, but certainly we'll be able to come forward and present that to the town within the next couple of months. But in the meantime, to keep this project on schedule, we wanted to move ahead with the full acquisitions and not put before you today.
When you say on schedule, what is your completion date if we meet the new requirements that you're laying out?
So our goal is still to have the first construction contract underway by the spring of '22. So we have a design contract before you this spring, and then approximately 1 year from that we break ground. We're working with the design team right now to understand how we could package the construction contract, how many individual contracts there would be, and then what the final completion date would be. So we have certainty on the front end in terms of how quickly we can get the first contract advertised. Within the next 2 or 3 months, we'll have more of a sense of what the true overall completion date would be for the third, possibly fourth contract.
So what do you think of the first contract completion date would be?
We're looking at probably at least a year of construction, possibly 2 years for that first phase, depending on how we scope it and what the limits will be. All of that, like I said, will become clearer once we have the design consultant officially under contract and can share all that information.
Because I know that when Ways and Means and House met, somebody from your department went in and gave them signals on when they thought completion dates were going to happen. And they thought that phase 1 would be completed sometime in 2023.
That would be correct. We planned for the construction in spring of '22, so we'd be looking at about a year's construction for the first phase.
Councilor Stevens.
Thank you. I received the document, so I appreciate it. In terms of right-of-way budgets, there's 17 million has been appropriated. Is it correct that we've used 10 million to date on what should be 150 estimated parcels being purchased, but we've only purchased 13 at this date? Is that
So the most expensive acquisitions are the full takings, properties where we're acquiring an entire parcel and then relocating either that business or family to new locations. So those are the acquisitions that we've moved forward with. And you're correct. In addition to those acquisitions, there's about 160 other right-of-way actions that need to be advanced. Some of those are permanent strip takings because we're widening a corridor and we need a small piece of someone's property. Other acquisitions might be more temporary for construction purposes. So there's a whole portfolio of projects that the right-of-way bureau is working on right now.
But the most costly have been covered at this point?
Correct. And we've advanced all of those.
Councilor Wheeler.
Yes, item 15. I got several questions on this Milford project. Is this money just for engineering, or is this construction and engineering?
This is for construction and engineering, as well as any right-of-way acquisition. You can use it for any of the 3 phases.
So, I understand part of this is to reconstruct the oval because a few years back someone made the little islands too big and tractor trailers can't get around them. So, who picks the engineer for this project?
And so this will be a locally administered project, so the town of Milford will be in control. That's what this agreement is for, is to pass the dollars on to the town. We will partner with them and make sure that everything is done in accordance with the federal requirements so they can get full reimbursement, but this will be a locally administered project.
And this contract here is really vague. It doesn't say, it says 101A, Nashua Street. I know that there's huge controversies of whether a traffic light will be added or not over the last few years, but this doesn't tell me the scope of the project. Is this a mile out of the Rotary? Is this right downtown near the town hall? It doesn't tell me a thing about what we're changing for Route 13. There's nothing here. And it's highly unusual we have this little information.
This is because it's going to be a locally managed project. This is purely the agreement between the state and the town to establish what our roles and responsibilities are. Once the town is authorized to proceed with the work, then they'll start the public meeting process and start to discuss what they're thinking for scope and how best they can utilize these dollars that we're allocating to them. And so all of the information you're used to seeing is more when we advance the project, and we have more of that work done up front.
So
This will be a very collaborative process once the agreement's in place and we can get started.
I remember we had a water sewer drainage project that was town managed, and it went very well with the state's help. But I called the chairman of the Board of Selectmen this morning and asked him, what are we doing on Route 13? I don't know. What are we doing on 101A? Well, there might be a traffic light here, there might be a turning light there, I don't know. And then, so I'm not really comfortable moving forward with this. I'd like to put it on the table so I can go back to the town and have a discussion. I'm sure we will ultimately move forward, but I want assurances that we're not going to use the same engineer that messed up these islands and tractor trailers can't get around without going up on the sidewalk. I want to get some assurances that that's going to happen, and then we can move forward with this. So, Governor, when it's appropriate, I'd like to move that we table this till our next meeting.
Okay. So I'll take that as a motion to table, if that's
Yes.
okay. We have a second. All in favor of tabling item 15, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 15 is tabled. Further discussion on any of the other items from the Department of Transportation? Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of approving items 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 18A, and 18B, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, those items are approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda item 19 from the Insurance Department. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 20 from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And 20 is approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 21 through 29 from the Department of Environmental Services.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. Commissioner Scott, are you on the line?
Good morning, excuse me, Councilors and Governor. This is Bob Scott with the Department of Environmental Services.
Good day, Commissioner. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Governor.
It's afternoon someplace, I guess.
This really has to, first of all, thank you for all the information you provided on the water drinking fund. That was really good stuff. And, that's an important funding source for us for water drinking issues. This one is on contract 27. And can you kind of walk us through this contract a little bit? Because I'm not sure I'm understanding the land trust that's located in Maine, and that we're going to be giving them an aquatic resource mitigation arm fund to somehow create some type of, is it an easement of some kind or a conservation easement? What exactly is this? How does this thing how does it come together?
All right, you broke up a little bit, Councilor, but I think I got the gist of your question. So again, this is for an award of our Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund, so our in-lieu program for wetlands. So you're right. So the moving party here that would administer the easement would be the Medusa Land Trust, which is actually in Maine. Obviously, as you're aware, Shelburne's right on the border there. This is very, very typical of easements we do to protect land for mitigation reasons. So is there, maybe I'm not answering your question, is there a particular question in it? You broke up a little bit for me.
Yeah, no, I just had a question. Who are the Mahoosic Land Trust group from Maine? Can you tell us a little bit about them and what type of, again, work they're doing in New Hampshire?
I have to get back to that. I don't really have on the tip of my tongue what other things they've done in New Hampshire, but I'd be certainly happy to provide that for you.
Yeah, I'm just curious who they are and what kind of work that they do, and I don't know anything about them. So when I don't know anything about Michigan and North Country, I always ask questions because I'm going to probably get a question myself down the road. So
sure, understandable.
Is there any?
So I'd be happy to, just to clarify, so I'll get you. Again, I'll copy the rest of the council as usual. Just information that we have on their activities in New Hampshire that we're aware of. Is that fair?
Yeah. Does this contract have to move, or does it have any timeline on it? Does it have to move quickly, or can we hold off on it until the next meeting?
I don't see a problem with waiting for next meeting. No, that's fine.
Thank you. Was there any objections to let you table something?
Sure, and that's item
27.
27, right? Okay. So we have a motion to
27,
table item 27. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor of tabling item 27, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 27 is tabled. Further discussion, any other items from environmental services?
Good morning, Commissioner. In regards to agenda item 22, we discussed this project and I had the opportunity to speak with Mike Wimsett, and we know a lot of the expenditures are for working with getting out of chlorine and getting into a chlorine alternative. My question is, there's some land easements, and I'm just curious, intermittently I'm seeing that reference in this contract, about how much is being appropriated for land easement.
Sure, Councilor. I know Mike sent you an email too, I believe. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that. So they're relatively small parts of easements. And again, if you don't mind, Councilor, I'll back up a little bit. So this item is for additional funds. The trust fund, as they approve these grants and loans to the Southern New Hampshire project, the intent here was, again, for the regulated utility, which is Hampstead Area Water Company, to be wheeling or passing water through to Plastow, New Hampshire, as part of the project. So the intent was to effectively make them whole, if you will, for any cost incurred for allowing that extra flow to get through to Plastow, because that's not in their franchise area, so they don't benefit from that as directly. So there are portions of that, they're minor, that do involve easements for pump stations and that type of activity. I'm looking right now for his email to you, so if you could just hold a second, I apologize. It's one advantage of being remote is I can look at my computer at the same time. All right. So again, my apologies while I look here. It looks like I apologize. It looks like he did not differentiate that for you. So I apologize, but I can absolutely get. I'm sorry. Here we go. It's at $20,000 for the West Side Drive booster station. That's an easement. $20,000, and then the not related directly to this increase. This item. There was an earlier item, and it's now been built in Atkinson. There's a 1 million gallon water storage tank that was, half of that was required to provide the proper pressure for Plastow, and that land easement cost was $50,000.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion on any of these items? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of items 21 through 29, with the exception of item 27, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. I now ask for a motion, thank you, Commissioner. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 30 through 33A from the Department of Education.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of these items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the items are approved. I now ask for motion on agenda items 34, 35, and 36 from the Department of Safety.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Stevens?
Is the commissioner still here? Good morning. I had the chance to talk with the commissioner regarding agenda item 34, and I think it would be just really helpful for some of those constituent firefighters in my district to know the accessibility of this program.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Council. Good morning. Robert Point, Commissioner, Department of Safety. Myself and Councilor Stevens had a conversation just to ensure that out of the approximately 180 to 200 firefighters that were hired prior to these testing, that there would be an ability to get this NFPA 1582 physical prior to June 31st. And this contract offers for approximately 70 to get the test, but we reimburse. And I have ensured to the fire academy that if there is any firefighter having problems finding a physician that can do that testing, that we will ensure that we help at the fire academy. But I was given complete confidence that there's plenty of time and opportunities for everyone to get the test that's required.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion on any of these items? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of items 34 through 36, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The items are approved. I now ask for motion on agenda items 37, 38, and 38A from the Department of Justice. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the items are approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 39 through 43 from the Department of Administrative Services.
Second.
Any discussion on any of these items? Councilor Wheeler?
Item 41, please.
Sure.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Charlie Arlinghouse, Commissioner of Administrative Services.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner. On item 41, is this contract going to replace Express Scripts when their contract expires, or is this something different?
It's something different, but it's part of that process. So the Express Scripts contract expires. The Express Scripts contract expires at the end of the year. Legislation was passed last year to require us to procure in a very specific way, not just through a reverse auction vendor, which is something we've been looking at, like a lot of people have, but with a very specific way through a reverse auction. This contract is selecting the reverse auctioneer, if that's the right term, reverse auction company, with whom we will work on the procurement.
Okay. I was a little confused by that, so I appreciate the clarification, because I'm not at all happy with Express Scripts, so I'm glad to see that we're going to do a reverse auction.
We're definitely going to bid, and we want to hope everyone's feet to the fire.
Thank you.
Great. Further discussion on any of these items? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The items are approved. And we do have the one tabled item, former table item 81 from New Hampshire Fish and Game. Is there any interest in bringing that off of the table? It doesn't seem like there is. Okay. So we'll leave item 81 on the table. With that, that concludes our regular agenda. There are some informational items in the back. If any folks have any questions on those are mostly taken care of. as we actually finalize and clean up all the accounting within some of those programs.
Governor, I just had one question. Can you tell me the status of the state employees contract negotiations?
Nothing has changed since the last meeting.
I understand that they made some proposals. Do you have any idea when the state might be making counter proposals?
We do everything within the appropriate time frame. We kind of have general time frames lined up.
Thank you.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. Ray Plummer has come back to state service and done yeoman's work. I noticed that he's mentioned in here, is he going to be brought back for the full calendar year and with an option to come back the next year after?
So I think, if I remember correctly, we brought Terry Plummer back on a contractual basis. I don't remember if we put a fixed time on it or if it was month to month.
I don't remember if it's, there is a fixed timeline on it, with the option to renewals,
Yeah.
to do renewals, but he's a contracted employee from National State.
I believe, and don't quote me on this, I'll get in a second, I believe it was for a 6-month period that we had potentially renewed because we knew vaccination would be approximately, the heaviest part would be the first 6 months. Whichever way it goes.
I just don't want to call him, 3 months down the road, so he's left the building.
Oh, no, we'll let you know. No, we're not letting him out of our sight. Any of the near future. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes, sorry, Councilman.
I just wanted to interject a little sad news. We had a gentleman who gave his prayer before our government council meeting anytime over the years, Garrett Weir. He's a Patriot pastor in my community of Wakefield. Lived here for about 16 years. Went to Valley Forge Military Academy as a youngster and Vanderbilt graduate. But he spent 40 years in ministry. And if there was an association out there, Garrett belonged to it, and he probably preached to them as well. And so he was a personality, a man of conviction, and someone you wanted him on your side because he was very forthright and very religious. But it's a sad moment. He passed away at 72 at his home on January 27th, and so I just my thoughts to him and his family. But he did, in a way, do his own state service. And that was pastoring to many groups and people around the state of New Hampshire, and to us in 2015.
Yeah. Pretty incredible guy, to say the least. Okay, thank you, Councilor Kenny. With that, we will adjourn today's meeting.